to our top story, and it's good news for the Conservatives. The economy is growing, the boats have finally stopped, and the latest polls show them on course to win a fifth term in office. Unfortunately, for Rishi Sunak, this is a political fever dream, which only exists in his wildest imagination. The latest polling by YouGov paints the bleakest picture yet for the Conservative Party. Have a look at this. If a general election was held today, Keir Starmer would sail into Downing Street as Prime Minister. Labour are on course to win over 400 seats. That's a result that would match Tony Blair's landslide back in 1997. The Tory wipeout would see the party left with just 155 MPs, fewer than Sir John Major managed back in the day. 11 cabinet ministers would be casualties of the top Tory collapse, with the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and Conservative leadership hopefuls Penny Mordaunt and Grant Shapps also losing their seat. But in Rishi's world, none of this matters and everything is going to plan.
Look, there's going to be lots of polls, and you know this better than most because you've covered multiple elections.
They're consistently looking pretty grim, right?
But what matters is the general election, and that's what I'm focused on.
Go on.
I'm sure we'll get to that.
Tell us, reveal us, a Sun World exclusive.
No. But look, on that, I've been clear, actually, because I said, look, my working assumption is we'll have an election in the second half of the year.
You've been clear when it might be. You've also ruled out dates. You've ruled out a May election. You've publicly ruled out a May election.
But that's because we've got really important local elections to focus on.
Did he go a bit Danny Dyer on us there? You know this better than most, don't you, Harry? Yeah. The stark reality is the Tories are more than 20 points behind Labour in the polls. No one can stop the boats, and millions of British people are screaming out for change. Rishi Sunak's claimed he is the change candidate. The only change I can see the Prime Minister making is swapping Downing Street for his Santa Monica penthouse in the not-too-distant future. On the back of all of this, we're asking the question, can anything save the Tories? Is there that one thing, that nugget of hope you could throw to Rishi Sunak? Is there anything they could do right now to change the predictions? Because they are dire. 0344 499 1000. Our lines are open. You can text 87222 or on the socials at talkTV. With me to discuss this and the rest of the day's big top stories, broadcaster Claire Muldoon is with us. I don't know whether I feel sorry for Rishi Sunak, Claire, or whether he's just annoying me now, because every time, I mean, we'll come to the Rwanda thing, but yeah. I mean, goodness me, this is it a man that genuinely can't see it, or has somebody said to him, look, it doesn't matter what's thrown at you, Prime Minister, you've still got to carry on as if you're going to win?
I think it's a bit of both, because I think as a leader, you have to have courage. You have to have the innate ability to carry on the discipline of your team, of your party in this case. But I also think there is an arrogance there. There was scepticism from the backbenches for a long time amongst Rishi's appointment as PM. And we heard post-Christmas into the new year, you know, will Graham Brady get enough letters? Will there be a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister? Will there be a change? When will the general election be? There's too much, Iain, up in the air at the moment. But I'll tell you something, I need to move out my flat. So if Mrs Sunak needs a good removal company, I can give her the number.
You think you could do that? Yeah. Well, that would be some sort of, because they will definitely need it, that's for sure.
Well, yes, I think, because he cannot, I do not think he can, you know, carry on as being the leader of the Conservatives. I think the Conservative Party itself will implode for many reasons. They don't agree on much. The backbench is not solidifying with the front bench. The Cabinet seems to be doing what they want. But there is that presence in the Prime Minister that all's well. He's got this very calm demeanour. Yeah. So therefore, I think...
He can do Danny Dyer as well when he needs to.
Well, let's think. I mean, things I think are dire than any Danny Dyer could make it.
Good point.
I really, really do.
It's interesting that Labour are on track to get 400 seats here, because this is the kind of mystery, Claire, of how...
Politics.
Politics and how people vote, because there isn't an awful lot of love for Keir Starmer. This is not about Keir Starmer's brilliance. This is not that Labour have come up with some amazing philosophical idea that's going to change the face of the United Kingdom. He just happens to be the chief beneficiary of the fact that he's not...
The Conservatives are useless.
Yeah, indeed. Why do the Lib Dems not get all of those?
Where are the Lib Dems?
Well, I know, I agree. I'm not saying they should. But why, if people aren't loving Labour, why
Yeah.
would they say, well, OK, I don't like the Tories, I'll go to Labour? Why don't they go somewhere else? There's the Lib Dems, there's the Reform UK, there's the Greens, if that is your thing. There's lots of other options.
Well, you
but
would
it's going to be
think-
Keir Starmer that gets it.
You would think. I mean, basically, Keir Starmer is where he is from doing absolutely nothing. I mean, he's flip-flopped his way through. He's U-turned, more U-turns in a U-bend in a plumber's outfit than anything at all I've ever encountered for the Labour Party. Gone are the days, and this is why I don't want the comparison between Tony Blair's landslide victory and what Keir Starmer will be projected to have, is because there's nothing new there. You know, Tony Blair was that John... John Smith got the Labour Party elected. He was the most outstanding politician of his time. Tony Blair, you know, almost fell on to that.
Yeah, he did.
You know, by default.
All the foundations were laid by Smith.
Sadly passed away, of course. So Tony Blair then was, he managed through the machination and the vulnerability of the nation at the time, and they hooked onto that. He was a messiah. He was the change that people wanted. He spoke. You know, he told them what they wanted, and people lapped it up.
Absolutely. Whereas Starmer isn't really doing any of that.
He's doing nothing.
He's also likely to be, I mean, in terms of policy, Ben Habib said it on Crosstalk a little earlier, that you'll get kind of a similar version of what we've already got, but possibly worse. Because if you want to look at the political story through the prism of either cost of living, like taxes, or immigration, then don't expect any big changes under Keir Starmer.
Well, no,
because
they won't.
both of those issues are likely to increase in their areas of problem than decrease.
Annalise Dodds had the position of Rachel Reeves before Rachel Reeves got it. Of course, she's now the shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. But none of these women have managed to come up with anything. The manifesto itself has got nothing really in it.
No.
They don't address devolution. They don't address quangos. They don't address net zero. They don't address education or health or taxes, what they're going to do. So no one really needs to know. Well, we do need to know, but no one actually knows.
Indeed. Big casualties, though, coming the Tories' way, including a couple of mayors as well. The mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, who's been a fairly sturdy, trusted face in that neck of the woods. Ben Houchin, similarly in Teesside, predicted to lose their mayoral gigs.
Do you think that's
well.
because they're Conservatives? I mean, look at Sadiq Khan. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's run London to the ground. You know, and it's just an absolute anathema to me to find out, you know, that these mayors, they've got a lot of power.
Mayors do have a lot of power, increasing power as well. And I think certainly there's a view that whoever wins the next election is going to increase the power that devolved regions get. Let's move on to this, because Rishi Sunak, this is his scintilla of hope. And, of course, it's Rwanda. I think he's in the land of the fairies if he thinks this is going to save him, for a number of reasons. The main one being it ain't going to work. But Rishi Sunak has hinted that he's ready to rip up the human rights obligations in order to get Rwanda through. Rwanda is more important than the European Convention of Human Rights. That seems to be where he's coming from.
That's what he says he's going to withdraw on. But to me, it's just piecemeal. To me, he's just throwing a bone to the dog, because by the time this comes round, we will have had a general election, because you cannot substantively change policy from now until the last possible time is November, we've been told. It can't go on for any further than that.
So it's not going to happen. If you wanted to pull out of it by the time that you did it...
He's merely throwing a bone to a dog.
Of course he is. Let's move on to your home ground, Scotland. Police Scotland have been accused of making it up as they go along, with discrepancies emerging in the recording of hate crimes. The allegations primarily against J.K. Rowling. This, of course, is all about the new hate crime bill, which came into force on Monday.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
And thousands of people have already registered complaints.
But let's just, remind your viewers and your listeners what Monday actually was. It was April Fool's Day.
I mean,
so of course,
were they serious with this?
Of course it had to be an SNP piece of legislation that came live on that day that actually was made law on March 2021.
Yeah.
So it's taken this amount of time. The amount of money they've wasted. And now we find today that the head of Calmac Ferries has been ousted. Very quietly. There's not one of those SNPs that have taken any form of responsibility for the Calmac Ferries. There's not one MSP up there that's taken responsibility for this hate crime. They've allowed it to go through. They've allowed it to go live. They've allowed Scotland to fester in, nonsense. Well, what can I say? I'm too frightened to say anything. Well, I've got some stern warnings for a lot of football supporters in Glasgow. We've got an Old Firm game coming up soon between Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah.
I have never heard any more hatred between two teams
Indeed.
than those two teams.
Yeah. 3-0 to Rangers, by the way. That's just the prediction. Thought I'd throw that in there.
Well, good luck.
We're going to have a fight now, Claire.
What?
Yeah, do you want some? What's going on, eh?
Are you saying you've got a bit of a blue nose, have you?
A bit of blue going on at this end. I'm a Chelsea man, so it follows, obviously. And what about this? Murdo Fraser, the Scottish Conservative MSP. He was, this is interesting, he was logged as committing a non-crime hate crime.
Uh-huh.
Which is, it's just, this is...
It's even the wording of it.
Orwellian kind of mumbo-jumbo, garbage, flannel juice
He said
and
you
gibberish.
thought, didn't you?
He said you thought, so therefore I am. Just to employ a bit of Descartes in there as well.
I like it.
He said, he put a tweet out saying that this was about the term, the nonsensical term non-binary.
Yeah.
It is, there's no real definition of non-binary other than the sort of street definition. It's not a recognised gender or anything like that. So on the basis of that, he said non-binary is as valid as choosing to identify as a cat.
Yes.
And there were lots of people who complained about this and said it's a very, very bad thing for him to say. I find it interesting. Did somebody literally pick up the phone and ring the police and say, I've just read a tweet from a politician that said, gave his opinions on the phrase non-binary, and I'd like to report him. Presumably somebody did, or people did, multiple people.
I actually think it's more graver and more sinister than that, Iain, because people won't even know if the complaints have been made against them. Such is the volume.
That's right.
Such is the volume of complaints, such is the volume of reporting, but such is the lack of intelligence and the lack of direction that Police Scotland have actually had on this issue. Now, where's Humza now? It's on his direction that this has actually gone through. He must have signed off on it. Nicola started it all. She's supposed to be a qualified lawyer. You would think they would know, sitting down in the shortbread Senate, i.e. Holyrood, what they knew that were going to happen and what was going on.
The shortbread Senate?
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
I like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Is that your own?
I would love to think. No, it's not. It's a friend of mine.
All right, it works.
It works. I could have taken it.
But the fact that you can be reported for and we've interviewed loads of people over the years who've been reported for one of these things, a non-crime, hate crime.
Yeah.
The nearest somebody got to explaining this, which frankly is still rubbish, is that the police were getting so many calls on stuff that happened on... I chaired a debate with the Police Federation years ago, and somebody made the point that a big percentage of calls that they get, particularly in the evening, are people reporting what someone had said about them on Facebook. And that was a real... So one neighbour called another neighbour a silly old cow or something, so therefore...
It probably was.
The police... Yeah, probably was, yes. Rancid, frankly.
We'll be reported now.
So the police turn up and say, you can't do that, it's inflammatory. They got so many... They didn't know what to do with all this data.
Yeah.
So someone in probably the College of Policing or wherever said, well, what we need to do is come up with... we'll call it a non-crime so we can report it. So therefore, if in the future... This is the theory. If in the future... we've got no, there's no trail of this, we can say, oh no, we've got a database here, so it's not a crime, but it's been reported as a hate crime. They're not making a judgment on its authenticity, they're merely covering their backs to say we've covered it.
And
so I think that's the police,
that's kind of,
indeed, yes, that's the police defence of it. But nonetheless, somebody somewhere sitting in a very impressive, large leather wingback chair...
In Bute House, possibly in Edinburgh.
Somewhere must have gone, this is bonkers. Yeah. This is just nuts. A non-crime, thought crimes, essentially.
Well, that's
People's opinions. People being... We are legislating for offence here.
We are. And that for offence and offence. I am offended by it, to be honest with you. Shall I report the hate crime as a hate crime?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll back you up on this.
Where on earth is this going to end?
4,000 people have now... It only came in on Monday. 4,000 people have now reported a hate crime in, 72 hours? It's upside down, Claire Muldoon.
It is indeed.
And we hit the clock on that
Let's shut that shortbread Senate down, eh?
I think we should. Have a cracking Christmas, won't you? Enjoy... Enjoy the football.
Oh, there's
as
so
well.
much hate
just
here.
Remember, just
so
remember,
much hate.
3-0, Claire. Just think of 3-0.
To Celtic.
Let that.
Thank you.
That was not going to happen. Sorry.
I think it is.
That is Claire Muldoon, everybody, with us on the programme.